All right. We are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about. Our first two segments, I was joined by Chris from the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast and, Nelson, the host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We talked about our WWE SmackDown preview. We also talked about Becky Lynch's contract and how it kind of relates to, athletes outside of the professional wrestling spectrum because essentially, it's all over sports just because, wrestling isn't like, doesn't include a ball or anything like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that superstars can't hold out for their worth. Hope Becky deserves the best contract, 1,010%. Moving forward, we have Eric's Tag Team World Cup, so we're going to dig on into that. It seemed like my graphics for the other one was kind of okay. No, this works awesome. But I want to remind you guys to use the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. Give me your questions, comments, concerns, opinions. Tell me, some storylines you want to see. Tell me how you feel about, TNA moving forward too against all odds. Tell me how you think WWE SmackDown will go. Obviously, it's aired on the East Coast already. Can't wait to watch it. I have it recorded right now. It's going to be dope. It's going to be sick. So yeah, we'll dig in on into that. So kind of want to move on here. I always tend to run out of time, but yeah, let's go ahead and start with our tag team, Eric's Tag Team World Cup. So also I have 8 more teams on bracket 2 for this Sweet 16, and of course you have to include the Brothers of Destruction. You got Kane, The Undertaker, who are brothers. Brothers. Kane was playing with fire, burned his face, burned the house down. No, I'm just kidding. Like, I'm kayfabe. But these guys were dominant. The best thing about these guys is that it was unpredictable. These guys essentially were fighting in the ring, but at the same time, it seemed like they were in competition with each other, which, brothers. If you have a brother, you obviously know when in any given competition, you're always trying to be better. You're always trying to beat the older brother, and that's kind of sort of aspect of it. And Kane was the younger brother and the Undertaker. I remember when Kane came out to confront the Undertaker in that Hell in the Cell match with Shawn Michaels, and I think it's gotta be Kane. I think that was Vince McMahon's voice. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. So yeah, I have the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and the Undertaker, joining the fray. And next, once when we keep talking about wrestling tag teams, you got to think about this guy, Arn Anderson. And like you see Paul Heyman, it's crazy how long Paul Heyman has been. You have Eaton and you have Anderson, and it's crazy how Paul Heyman is, just so prominent in wrestling. Like he's been around for look at that cell phone. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's nasty. But moving on. You've seen these guys have so many title runs. They were huge in the NWA. I think they touched on the AWA a little bit. Don't quote me on that. And you have Arn Anderson still, highly involved with wrestling. I think he hosts a podcast, I believe he does. Definitely still prominent in the wrestling world right now. All right, next we have the Mega Powers. The Mega Powers, these guys were probably two of the most feared wrestlers in the 80s. You have Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage. The best part about these guys was, nice little, they were able to tag team. They were able to kind of have matches against each other and not take it too personal. But it was also cool once when these guys feuded as well. These guys were just huge. Obviously you don't mention WWF's history or the WWE without mentioning the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan, the Mega Powers. So now we have I don't know why I want to call them the Angry Samoans. I blame my older brother, but we have these guys. We have these guys. Something Samoans, the Wild Samoans. Basically, part of the family tree, part of the bloodline. These guys were absolutely dominant. These guys had multiple NWA tag team title runs, and it kind of shaped how tag teams are kind of ran today. Obviously, you see their style portrayed in their family, with Rikishi, Roman Reigns, the Usos, still to this day, and it's all part of this bloodline that as WWE fans, you kind of know and you love. Next, of course, we got to mention the Dudley Boys, Devon and Bubba Ray Dudley. Devon, get the tables. I love these guys because out of the whole TLC birth, you saw Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys find success. But I think they have 7 tag team title runs, and I think Edge and Christian has 6. Also when these guys left the WWE, you saw Bubba Ray become Bully Ray in TNA when he was with Aces and Eights, and you saw Devon there as well. Brother Devon. These guys were great. These guys were great. They were amazing to watch. Absolutely. And another thing that I kind of have to throw flowers on is then they're from ECW. They're from ECW. They were one of those tag teams, part of those superstars that kind of ultimately surfaced in WWE before. Yeah, they surfaced before Invasion. It's because it was 2000. Yeah. They surfaced before Invasion, and as soon as WCW and ECW were bought out by Vince McMahon, I bet you these guys got excited. They're like, "Oh, cool! We get to work with a couple, old, friends from ECW like Sabu or the Sandman or Just Incredible, and old guys from WCW." Like, because I think these guys touched on WCW for a little bit in their careers. So, obviously, got to add the Dudley Boys. They're absolutely awesome. So, yeah, and once again mentioning the bloodline. We have the Usos, multiple tag team winners. The best thing about it was their 600 plus reign day as the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Champions. Definitely in this day and age, you can't mention the tag team division without the Usos. Definitely one of the best tag teams. Obviously, you see Jimmy Uso is kind of on the shelf right now. You see Jay Uso getting a huge singles push, so happy for that. But I don't know, these guys were amazing, and these guys were ultimately amazing together. So WWE, make sure take notes, and let's try to bring these guys and get back together. Next, we had the Steiner brothers. The Steiner brothers, the ultimate combination of wrestling meets the MMA. These guys were great champions, obviously dominate. You see Rick and Scott Steiner right there, Big Papa Pump. He made, some pretty big waves in WCW. But them as a tag team together, they were unstoppable. They were definitely unstoppable. Definitely, watching highlights and stuff. I think they were a little bit before my time, but it's so crazy to see Scott Steiner with hair. That's no, moving on. But I don't know. These guys, they dabbled in wrestling a little bit. I think as soon as the invasion happened, where WWF bought over WCW, you didn't really see Scott Steiner too much. You saw him make his appearances on WWE, but I feel like during the Vince McMahon, kind of rubbing in your face that we beat you, or didn't really give these guys the respect they deserved. You saw Booker T, you saw Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg, and Scott Steiner come from WCW. They were heavyweight, they were main cutters, and they were kind of treated like trash. So kind of crazy to kind of see them, but they make it onto my list. And the eighth and final one, we have Farouk and Bradshaw, part of the APA Protection Agency, and obviously they started from the Ministry of Darkness when they were with the Undertaker, Viscera, Minion, Paul Bearer. So it was these two guys are on the list because they're dominant. They're dominant. They were great singles wrestlers. Obviously, Farouk was great outside the Ministry of Darkness. You have, he was with the Nation of Domination. And then you saw Bradshaw, become the millionaire stock market, guru, where he was JBL, came out in a limousine from Texas, good old fashioned Texas. And, he was probably one of the best heels during the common era of the WWE, ruthless aggression. Feuded with guys like John Cena, feuded with Eddie Guerrero, and I don't know, it's kind of Batista. It was badass. You can always count on JBL. He went on the commentary, and I gotta be honest, I really like JBL. As soon as he made it on the commentary, he was kind of like that, that heel role with Michael Cole. And I think as soon as he left, it was kind of weird. It was kind of weird. As soon as he left, I felt like WWE kind of gave Michael Cole that heel role that he didn't really seem like. I don't know. He didn't really seem too good in. I think he was a heel. Obviously he was like the Miz's main fan. He wanted to beat up JR and stuff like. He wore that ridiculous like whomper to fight, and like it was just dumb. It was really dumb. Definitely one of the worst things that WWE ever did is include the announcers inside the storyline. So hey, yeah. So that is my bracket two. Like I said, these aren't the matches necessarily. This is more or less, trying to introduce these guys, trying to introduce the tag teams that I chose. We got the Sweet 16. Let's limit it down to the Elite Eight next Thursday. So make sure you tune into that podcast. Thursdays will be, ultimately dedicated for this, Eric's World Tag Team Cup. So yeah, to make sure you stay tuned every Thursday to find out, which one of these tag teams will be the best tag team in professional wrestling history. So moving on to a fifth and final segment, I'm going to give you guys my wrestling news roundup, just news that I've kind of been hearing throughout the week, big headlines that I'm going to give you guys to kind of ponder over the weekend. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend. But let's go ahead and dig on into this fifth and final segment, Eric's wrestling news roundup. So hey, do not go anywhere.